Okay, class, so I am going to go through the practice quiz for functions check 2. You can either watch this video at the same time that you're doing the problems, or you can just go through and sort of fast forward or rewind to whatever problems you missed and you need an explanation on. So I'm going to go through here starting with number 1. Right, if you want to do both at the same time, you have to pull up 2 browsers and sort of have the video playing on one side and have the problems playing on the other side. And then obviously you'll want some paper and pencil. But if we're looking at number 1 on the practice quiz, it says to write the function that represents the line passing through the point. And then we have the point -3, 9. And that has a slope of 2. So remember, slope is represented by the letter m. So in other words, what we know is that the point is -3, 9, and the slope is 2. So we know a point and we know a slope. If we want to write the equation of a line given a slope and a point, we want to use point-slope form. And point-slope form is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So if you forget that formula, it is located at the top of the quiz or in the function check. It's located at the top where all the other formulas are listed. You'll just have to know that you want point slope form. Then obviously m is 2, so that's the one that's going in for m. And our ordered pair is our x sub 1 and our y sub 1. Okay, so when we're plugging that in, we're going to have y minus our y sub 1 is now 9. Equals 2 times x minus our x sub 1 is now -3. Okay, then from this point, we want to make sure that we get this solved for y, because that's always our sort of agreed upon final answer, so that all of our answers look the same if we were given different information, right? So those 2 negatives over here make a positive, and we're then going to distribute. So 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 3 is 6. So we're now here, and then we will undo subtraction with addition. Sorry, my paper is stuck there. So we're going to add 9 to each side. We'll have y equals 2x plus 15. And so we should have selected the option that has y equals 2x plus 15. Okay, number 2 says select all equations that have the same solution set as the following graph. Okay, so when we look at number 2, we're given a graph, okay, and it passes through 2 on the x and through 2 on the y. Okay, and then we're given, oh, sorry, my paper's not high enough. 2 on the x and 2 on the y. And then we're given choices to pick from. Sorry, I'm rearranging, guys. I'm not in my classroom, so I don't have my mount. I've got it all set up with textbooks and dealing with what I got. So we have the choices to pick from of f of x equals a -x plus 2. Now, yours might be in a different order because the answers are shuffled each time, but these are the 4 options we have to pick from. -1x plus 2, y equals... Oh, nope, just kidding. I wrote that down wrong. Let's see. Y minus 1 equals negative, and then we have x minus 1. And then the final option that we have is 2x plus 4y equals 24. Okay, so these are the 4 options we have to choose from, and we need to decide if each one is right or wrong. Okay, so if we look at the first one, f of x, remember, is the same thing as y. So this is saying y equals -x plus 2. So we have 2 options that we could go about checking this. Option 1 is that we could just graph in this form. So this says start on the y-intercept at 2, and then go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And so this one does work. Okay. Option 2 is that we could look at this line and say, okay, it has a y-intercept of 2, so it has a b of 2, and it has a slope of down 1, right 1, so it has a slope of -1, and this also is that same representation. Our second one, which says y equals -1x plus 2, so if we look at this option, right, again, it's the same idea as this one up above. The only thing that's really different is this one wrote in the coefficient of 1, okay, instead of just leaving the negative there. And that this one has f of x and this one has y. But these are actually the exact same equation. They are just written in a different format. So this one is also correct. Okay, on this third one, we are in point slope form. So one option we could do is we could solve this for y. So if we distribute, right, there's really a -1 sitting here. So if we distribute that -1, that's going to be a -1x plus 1. And then we'll undo subtracting 1 by adding 1. So we'll get y equals -1x plus 2. Okay, which is the same thing as what we had as above. So this one is also a correct answer. For our last one, we could solve this one for y and see if we get that same equation. So if I subtract 2x from each side, for y equals a -2x plus 24. Then I'll undo multiplication with division. I'm going to have to divide in each place, and I will get y equals, this reduces to a -1/2 x plus 6. And that's not the same equation, right? We don't have an intercept on our graph of 6 and then going down 1/2. So this is not an option that we would want to select. Okay, so moving on to number 3. When we look at number 3, it says to look at the graph and we're deciding if each of those points is a solution set. So I'm going to draw a very just quick graph here, looking at number 3. Okay, so we have a graph. Let's see, it looks like we have a point at -2 on the y-axis. And maybe a point at like -1, +1 over here. So this is about my line. It's a solid line and it is shaded below. Okay, then we have a point up here which is labeled as C. We have a point down here which is labeled as B. And we have a point over here at -1, -1, which is labeled as A. Okay, so if we're deciding if each of these is a solution or not, remember, anything counts as a solution if it is in the shaded area. So anything that's falling over on this side of the line is a solution, which means A right away is a solution. So for A, we would definitely say yes. A is a solution. Okay, now when we're looking at the actual line, we need to decide if the line is dashed or solid. If it's on a solid line, it is a solution. If it's on a dash line, it's not a solution, right? That dash line we would fall through. It doesn't actually have a solution there. But this one does have a solid line, and B is sitting right on the solid line. So for B, we would say yes. Okay, point C is all the way up here. It's not on the line. It's not in the shaded area. So C is not a solution. Okay, then we're going to look at number 4. Number 4 is asking us to select the correct representation for the function. So in number 4, we are given a function. Okay, the function rule says y equals -x over 2 minus 4. And then when we look at our multiple choice options, we're given graphs, right? So we need to turn this in some way, shape, or form into a graph. And then we want to find which one is the correct graph of it. Okay, so if I wanted to graph y equals -x over 2 minus 4, I would need to find my m and to find my b. So the biggest issue for most of my students is recognizing what my m is when it's written in this format. Remember, this x really has a 1 sitting in front of it, and so if I pull that x out to the side, this would be the same thing as saying y equals -1/2 x minus 4. And so then it makes it a little bit more clear that my m is -1/2 and my b is -4. Remember, whenever we go to graph, we are going to start on the b, on the y-axis. So I'm starting on my vertical axis at -4. Okay, so I need to start at -4. And then I need a slope of down 1, right 2, right? That negative is telling me to go down 1, but I can only use that negative once. So I'm going down 1 and then right 2. And this is the line that I need to be looking for. Okay, so we need to find the graph that has the intercept at -4, and then from that point goes down 1 and right 2. Number 5 is asking us to solve for y. So on number 5, we are given, oops, my number sign's a little bit crazy. We're given 2x minus 1/2 y equals 5. So if we want to solve this for y, we would need to move our x first. So our x is positive 2x, so we're going to subtract 2x. Okay, these will cancel out. So we'll get a negative 1/2 y equals a negative 2x plus 5. Right, this 5 is positive, which is why I have the addition sign here. And then I have this negative 1/2 sitting in front, so I'm going to divide that, right? This says negative 1/2 times y. So I'm going to divide that all the way through. Remember, dividing by negative 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So you can either pick up your calculator and multiply by the reciprocal of -2, or just type in what you see. -2 divided by negative 1/2 is going to give us a positive 4x. And a positive 5 divided by a negative 1/2 will give us a negative 10. So we need the answer of y equals 4x minus 10. Okay, then number 6, which is our last one, we are given a function rule. It's in function notation. It says f of x equals 3x plus 2. And we are asked to complete the table. Okay, so we're given a table that looks like this. And we have input values of -3, 0, and 3. So for each of these, we should be plugging in our x value in for x up here. So instead of saying 3 times x, I now want to say 3 times -3 plus 2. So 3 times -3 is -9. -9 plus 2 is -7. Okay, then I'll say 3 times 0, which is 0, plus 2, which is 2, right? I'm taking this exact same thing up here, but now I am just plugging in 0 instead. So now instead of saying 3 times x, now I'm going to say 3 times 0 plus 2. And then I'm going to repeat that process again, except now say 3 times 3 plus 2. And so I should have typed in output values of -7, 2, and 11.